Thank you, Program Director, and good morning to all. It's wonderful to see this place buzzing with HPC enthusiasts from across the country and beyond. Let me begin by extending a warm welcome on behalf of the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, the CSIR, to all the esteemed participants of the 17th Center for High Performance Computing, or CHPC, National Conference. Our conference theme is Artificial Intelligence, Machine Learning, Cloud and Quantum Computing, the Changing Landscape of HPC. This theme is inspired by the swift evolution of emerging technologies that are driving global developments in high-performance computing, or HPC, and other forms of cyber infrastructure. These developments are ushering new entrants into the user base of cyber infrastructure, reflecting the rise in AI and machine learning needs. And one example of this are the large language models, I think recently. And in addition to that, of course, the drive towards exascale computing. We are privileged to have conference delegates from different parts of South Africa and the world at large, with representation from academia, research organizations, and industry. This conference is hosted by the National Integrated Cyber Infrastructure System, NICIS, which is an initiative of the Department of Science and Innovation, DSI, and is implemented by the CSIR. The mandate of the CSIR is to contribute to improving the quality of life in South Africa through multidisciplinary research and technological innovation. In essence, the CSIR addresses national challenges in a range of economic sectors through science, engineering, and technology. Naturally, HPC and other forms of cyber infrastructure are critical enablers of this mandate. Collaborative networks with industry, academia, and other research organizations are also important to the CSIR. Hence, we are pleased to see the cross-section of participants at this event. The shareholder of the CSIR is the South African Parliament, and this shareholding is held in proxy by the Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation. So this is just to give some context about where the organization resides in the state. I would like to acknowledge representation we have from the Department of Science and Innovation, DSI, through Mr. Daniel Mukhohlwane, Mr. Hubert Matebula, and other officials. The DSI provides critical support for cyber infrastructure in South Africa and the SADC, or Southern African Development Community region. I would also like to acknowledge the SADC representatives that are in attendance and convey best wishes for the cyber infrastructure strategy that is under development for the SADC region. We are truly grateful to the illustrious keynote speakers, invited speakers, mentors, and sponsors that have supported this event. Your contribution is foundational to a vibrant HPC ecosystem that is at the forefront of technological innovation. This conference has a diverse program, and you'll notice this as you look through it. In addition to mainstream HPC topics, there are sessions that focus on niche areas of compute, such as cloud and quantum computing, AI and machine learning, data storage, networks, and more. In addition to conference presentations and discussions, we also have student competitions, engaging exhibits, student posters. And I would like to encourage you to please move around the venue and make use of these opportunities to engage with the exhibits, the posters, the student competitions, in addition to the sessions that will be offered. We also have 30 learners from Jacob Mdluli Secondary School from Mbombela. These learners are joining the opening session and also participating in introductory coding sessions. We welcome these learners and look forward to shaping the future with them. The CHPC National Conference fosters a multidisciplinary intersection around HPC that provides an opportunity for cross-pollination. And this, of course, is useful in addressing pressing challenges in South Africa and other parts of the world. Thank you once again for your participation. Enjoy the conference and your experience at the Kruger National Park. May you have fruitful deliberations in the days that lie ahead. Thank you.
Another round of applause for Dr. Wakaba. Thank you for that. I'd just like to welcome our guests and delegates who are still walking in. Please be reminded to keep your cell phones off whilst we get the proceedings underway. I'd like to call Mr. Daniel Mokhwahlane from the DSI. I've got it right? Yes, thank you. With regards to welcoming us to this event and the role that they play in shaping the different units of NICIs. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director. Dr. Wakaba, Executive Cluster Manager for the Next Generation Enterprise and Institution. Dr. Happy Sitole, Center Manager for National Integrated Cyber Infrastructure System. Mr. Mark Sharat, from Mark Sharat Sustainability Architects. Mr. Steve Teffer from STAG HPC Ltd. Prof. Liwell, Chef from University of Austin. Dr. Scott Lasky from Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Mr. Stein Makandiwara from Zambia Research and Education Network. Dr. House, I have just learned his name now, how to pronounce it, from Hewlett Packard Enterprise in Germany. Conference organizing team as well, and the sponsors, all delegates, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor and privilege for me to address this important gathering, 17th Annual Conference of the Center for High Performance Computing. A special word of welcome to our colleagues from the continent and other parts of the world. The annual conference of the CHPC continues to grow and remain an important forum for African researchers and industry to share experience and advances the area of high-performance computing on the continent. This year's CHPC conference is held in conjunction with the 13th South African Development Community meeting on cyber infrastructure technical experts, which was held yesterday. The meeting was yesterday. The main objective of SADC meeting was to review the progress on implementation plan on SADC cyber infrastructure framework and to identify priority regional flagship projects and activities to be implemented in the next 3 years. We look forward to the outcome of that meeting and how its decision will align with and bolster the outcome of this conference. As you may be aware, the theme of this year's CHPC National Conference is Machine Learning, Cloud, and Quantum Computing, Changing Landscape of HPC. This theme is motivated by the current developments in the cyber infrastructure space. These are developments in how users' access to the system has changed significantly, where cloud platforms and generative artificial intelligence is pushing the boundaries of HPC and overall cyber infrastructure. There is also gradual emergence of quantum computing, which looks like it is on the horizon. Hence, this conference will look at these developments and how they impact South African strategy in developing cyber infrastructure. It is encouraging to see the conference encompassing the overall development in cyber infrastructure. This resonates with our goals as the Department of Science and Innovation of consolidating these entities to effectively address the current challenges and be able to host and lead mega science projects in the country. For us as the DSI, the investment in cyber infrastructure is central to achieving productivity, competitiveness, and supporting economic growth of our country. It is for this reason we regard our country's investment in NICIs as critical for research, development, and innovation, and contribution to our national system of innovation. Therefore, through NIS's focus area, we aim to support the implementation of our country's key strategy plans and priorities. This includes medium-term strategic frameworks, National Development Plan 2030, National Infrastructure Development Plan 2050, and our DST's white paper, as well as the new vision of Science, Technology and Innovation Decadal Plan. As the DST, we also approved the NICI's 3-year focus area recently. This includes the recent developments and events such as the COVID pandemic or pandemics, technological advances, and novel strategies. The need to respond to these developments compellingly demonstrate the increasing importance of research data processing and connectivity as a national asset. And as you can imagine, data underpins many of our country's existing and recently developed national strategies and frameworks. This includes the recommendation from the report by Presidential Commission on the Fourth Industrial Revolution and the Data Cloud Policy gazetted by the Department of Communication and Digital Technologies and Open Science Framework Report. Furthermore, Phase 2 of our country's Science, Technology and Innovation Decadal Plan, which, as you know, serves as an important plan for our white paper on science, technology, and innovation, aims to lay a firm foundation for the more intensive improvement in productivity and innovation across business, state, social sectors. In this context, NICIs remain central to our plans and strategy for the consolidating of the country's assets and building of robust high-performance computing and data processing centers. We view all this as vital for optimizing public sector efficiency, and for this reason, NICIs will contribute to the implementation of our country's STI Decadal Plan, and it's also involved in the cloud and data strategy of the Department of Communication and Digital Technologies. Furthermore, NICIs shared a plan on how the cloud and HPC capacity of the state will be increased by cooperation of our government agencies such as State Innovation Technology Agency. The strategy also provides cooperation with other state entities such as the state-owned enterprises and others for SANRAN to combine or collate the existing fiber capabilities to connect all state organs and research facilities. Equally important, NICIs also support international science projects where South Africa leads, host, and participate. As such, a great emphasis is placed on this project to ensure that national priorities are taken care of. The square kilometer array is advancing and require data transport, processing, and storage. These are areas where NICI's 3 spheres must provide service. Similarly, the participation of global climate change studies requires significant resources for South Africa scientists to contribute meaningfully. Other areas of interest are in bioinformatics and genomic sequencing, which become even more pronounced after the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm about to finish. There are other discussions on global open science, which are gaining traction, and NICIs will have to position our country appropriately. STEM collaboration remains one of the key areas of activities which more South African scientists are being involved in ALICE and ATLAS experiments. All these plans can be only achieved with sufficient data connectivity, storage, curage, management, and processing capability in the country, together with the necessary skills. In conclusion, in this 17th annual CHPC conference aims to explore the contribution and expectation of policymakers, research communities, information community vendors, industry, and academia. This conference also provides vendors the opportunity to showcase their latest technologies through exhibition, presentation, exposure to researchers and key decision makers in the industry. As the Department of Science and Innovation, we are particularly interested in how conferences such as this can help improve government existing capacity in such areas of high-performance computing, big data, and high-speed networking, so that we are more proactive and agile in responding to social and environmental challenges of our time. I wish you a productive conference and look forward to the outcome of your deliberation. I thank you.
Thank you once again. Mr. Daniel, may I please ask you not to sit down? We'd like to give you a gift from Nikki's and take a photo with us. I'm just going to fetch it quickly. Please come back on stage. Another round of applause, colleagues. Thank you. Now, to give us an overview of Nikki's and the role that it plays and why we are here today, I'd like to call Dr. Happy Sithole, who will give us that overview. Please give him a round of applause as he comes on stage.
Thank you very much, Soku, for leading us in the opening of our meeting. Colleagues, good morning. I think we are all awake. And I would like first to acknowledge the presence of the Department of Science and Innovation and Mr. Mokhotlwane and CSIR, Dr. Wakaba. And I would like also to acknowledge our international guests who come here immediately after a hectic program of supercomputing. So that shows commitment to this conference because most of them come from the US and it's immediately after Thanksgiving. So we really appreciate this commitment to our conference. For our South African researchers, we know very well, you just come out of the hectic academic schedule and immediately you come to this conference. So we really appreciate that. The students also who just finished their exams. So being here, it is very important for us. So this conference, its history, is to make sure that with all the developments of cyber infrastructure, high-performance computing around the world, we should not leave Africa outside. And hence, we have got this meeting. You are here. We are going to be having a program which will be giving you the updates in terms of high-performance computing, cyber infrastructure, as you can see through the program, with the theme of artificial intelligence, machine learning, quantum computing, and cloud. And we're saying here, changing the landscape of high-performance computing and cyber infrastructure in general. And I'd like to bring your attention to what motivated this. Is today, we're talking about generative AI. And generative AI, basically what it has been doing is that the demand in processing such large language models pushed the barriers of computing to challenge the processing. And at the moment, what we see is that processing is aligned to delivering that performance of computing for the generative AI. And at the same time, sitting when we're looking at where does high-performance computing go, it is always now looking at following those trends of AI and machine learning to be able to change in the algorithms. And hence we are looking at this to say, the landscape of high-performance computing then, it's changing following all these developments. And I was reading keenly with interest when I saw that there is a worry about quantum computing and AI. They both coming out at a very fast pace. And one start to wonder, if that massive computing from quantum is realized, and if AI at the rate which is going, it is also realized, where is the world going? So it is in this conference where we are expecting those discussions. And in the program, we will be having a number of speakers who address these issues, who address how we are going to use these technologies to advance our cause here in South Africa and the region. And I'm really pleased with the first keynote that will be giving us relevant to the location that we are in, which is the Kruger National Park, and how wildlife management can use these technologies to be able to understand the trends. So basically, what we would have to do here is to be able to look at beyond these applications. This is just one example, but other applications in our lives in the country that will be able to use these technologies for the betterment of our lives. So that's what we expect cyber infrastructure to do. So with that, I would like to conclude here, but ask the organizing team, led by Dr. Werner Janse van Rensburg, just to give us an overview of the program. And colleagues here, I would really like to commend the work that this team has done. We finalized about the venue about 5 weeks ago, and Werner's key words were, "Happy do we have a conference? Are we going to have a conference?" And after a few days, then he says, "We have got a conference." So with that, I would like to ask Werner to come to stage so that he can be able to give us an overview of what we are going to be expecting today. So, thank you.
Thank you, Happy. Yeah, indeed, I'm privileged to lead a team of people that's organizing this conference, and yeah, it came together quite well, I would think, and I hope you would experience it this week. But maybe just to touch on a few things. First, I want to acknowledge our sponsors. Remember, 5 weeks ago, or so, we didn't have our sponsors. So we were thought, well, what's going to happen this year? And we were amazed by how the sponsors came to support us. We have got 11 conference sponsors. I think we can just give an applause for this. And I want to mention them. Our diamond sponsors is combined by HPE, Intel, and Eclipse. Platinum sponsors, Dell Technologies. We also have platinum sponsorship from Nithix. And then a number of gold sponsorships from Huawei, NVIDIA, Spectra Logic, Pinnacle, Supermicro, Vast Data. So you can see the names. I mean, all of these entities came and they generously sponsored this conference. And that's not all. And in terms of the student...
Ladies and gentlemen, and thank you to the chair, Dr. Sithole. I have 5 minutes allocated to my presentation, so we'll rather rush through it. This is a component of NICIS called DERISA, focused on the data services area of NICIS. And given the time constraints, I'll focus on 1 or 2 important products and services that DERISA is offering. So if you go to the DERISA website, which is at the URL shown there, you will get, as a user, focus on some of the DERISA services which are displayed here on the screen. All you have to do is subscribe to DERISA, log in, and you will have access to some of these all of these services that you see on this slide. I'd like to focus specifically on the long-term archive, which has just recently been deployed. This is an operational service in production, available to everybody in South Africa and outside South Africa. And the good thing about this is that it was so much needed, especially for South Africa. I think it's also the first such repository in Africa. So here is an opportunity, a way in which one can store important data for a very long period of time. And the process, as you can see on the slide, is quite simple. 4 steps. All you have to do is subscribe to DIRISA, and then do the application, and upon approval, you can upload the data. And the best part of all of this is that it's free, especially for academia, research councils, and other public sector employees. So an invitation to everybody, please go to this URL, have a look, see if it's useful. If you have any problems, issues, questions, don't hesitate to send an email or send a note to that address that you see on the screen. On the right-hand side of the slide is a picture of a part of the installation, which is currently hosted in Pretoria at the CSIR. But again, you are invited, encouraged to make use of this facility. It's free, and it's there, and it's available right now. A further slide on the process here, just to give a little bit more detail. What you see on the left, under number 1, another URL which takes you directly to the registration page or the login page, service@dirisa.ac.za. Once you've registered on DIRISA, you have access to this. You'll see the screen. Click on the long-term archive icon. You will then provide some details, custodian of the data, secondary custodian, and so on. Once that application is emailed or completed, a moderator at DIRISA will have a look at it and then email a response to you with details of how you can upload data. And we have 20 petabytes of storage are currently available. Much of this will actually be used by the Center of High Performance Computing, who are hosting quite a lot of data. And so some of that data, especially the valuable research data, will now be moved from the CHPC file systems to the DIRISA storage systems. And even better, this particular storage facility is arbitrarily expandable. The intent is, depending on utilization and uptake, we will increase the storage. We can increase the storage. The intent is to increase it to 40 petabytes in the next financial year. And similarly, also, a storage repository that we would refer to as hot storage, meaning that data that you store there is immediately accessible. On the right-hand side, you see some of the users of what we call the hot storage facility of DIRISA. So you can see I didn't include the numbers, but volumes range from around 40 terabytes to 400 terabytes in terms of usage. And you're most welcome, no matter how small or how large your data is, you're most welcome to upload it there. Again, an invitation to everybody, please have a look at this. The process is fairly straightforward. Again, if I go back to this slide, instead of clicking on the long-term archive icon, you simply click on Data Deposit Tool. The metadata requirements are much less. You have a lot more freedom. You have a lot more control. You can decide who and how you want to share your data. You can set up collections. You can develop your own metadata templates, and so on. So that is the 2 services I would have liked to highlight in my 5 minutes. And just point you to the 2 repositories there, and as you can see there on the right-hand side, some of the users of these facilities. Please do try and do let us know if you have any difficulties or any problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Vahed. Please give him another round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, before I call the next speaker, just to let everybody know that we are expecting our student cohort from Jacob Mdluli Secondary School. The bus will be arriving shortly, so please don't be surprised when they do come in, as they'll be filling up from the front these open seats. So when they do come in, please give them a warm welcome with a round of applause as well. They are also our special guests. With that said, I'd like to call Mr. Sabelo Dlamini from Sandren to give us his highlights.
Morning, everyone. Thank you very much for being with us this morning. As our MC has introduced me, I'm Sabelo Dlamini. I'm the Sandren Director. So I would just like to give you a bit overview of what is Sandren, the South African National Research Network. As my presentation is the high-speed network dedicated to science, research, education, and innovation. It's the key enabler to all the research and education activities in the country. You might not even notice if it works, but if it doesn't work, you will know. I will unpack more about the Sandren network and how it fits within the bigger NICIs and also some of our services. As most previous speakers have highlighted, we are within CSIR and the Smart Society Division within the NGI cluster. We are one of the sphere of the NICIs, as you can see there, CHPC, Teresa, and then Sandren, as Dr. Anova had highlighted on Teresa. Mr. Mervyn Christoffels will come on CHPC, and for me, I'm coming from the Sandren. As you can see, this is this nice three-legged pot that is brewing the research and innovation of the country. So for us in Sandren, what we do, we design, build the network for advanced services, and then we hand it over to tenants that provide us with support and maintenance of the network. So how big is this network? So as you can see here, this is the map of the country, South Africa. If you zoom into details, maybe you will see your campus or your research institutions. They are all connected. They're using the Sandren network. As you can see, the line there is dedicated fiber. That is our primary method of connectivity. We are looking mostly for fiber. Secondary is managed links to ensure that most of the institutions are connected to enable the research in different institutions. As you can see, the orange links that are there, we are connecting the Sarau, the square kilometer array observation research network, the SALT, and also the key national research initiatives within the country. We are enabling them with 100 gigabits per second connectivity, and we are actually in the research processes of looking at 400, 800, and 1.2 terabits type of connectivity in enabling the research. So this is just the high-level network of our fiber network interconnecting our facilities. As you can see, we also have access to the WEX and also access to the CCOM to ensure that all these research institutions are connected to the international society. Further to that, we've got partnerships with global and other regional research institutions. In this African region or SADC region, we connect with UbuntuNet Alliance on the west, WACREN, Western Central Africa Research Networks, and also on the Northern African side, Arab states research networks, and also in Europe, we've got strong relationships with GIANT. So this is more or less the high level of the connectivity that I can highlight and mention within this slot. So I will move on to the services that we offer. I think the most popular one is EduRoam. I'm sure 80 to 90% of us are enabled or connected by EduRoam. We also look at Sapphire, South African Federated Identity. This is to ensure, it's linked to EduRoam. This is to ensure that when students and researchers are moving around, if you are in another institution, you are able to connect without requesting connectivity using EduRoam, and you can also be authenticated to other services using the federated identity that recognize all the students and researchers within the country. We've also got services such as files, data transfer services, file sender and Globus file transfer. With these two services, actually in the last 2 weeks at supercomputing, we were able to transfer data at 100 gigabits per second from South Africa to the US. We did this experiment in the South African supercomputing event, and it was a success. We also have further services like Perfsona and NetSage that will help our institutions to do network analysis and highlight the key problem within the networks to enable our researchers and students to be able to connect. Further to that, we know not everyone is a good guy. We also have bad guys. So we are hosting CSET, South African's Computer Security and Incident Response Team. We help different institutions with vulnerability assessments and also tracking if there are any cyber threats within our research and education networks. We've helped a number of institutions to identify and mitigate a number of cyber threats that are within the network. And with that, we also have cyber security challenge. That is one of the student competition that is ongoing, where we are inviting different students to come and participate in our competition to hone their cybersecurity skills. Further to that, I think we've highlighted currently our network is at 8,122 gigabits per second at present. We are continuously investing in the network with the support of DSI. Our target, maybe in the few years, we will be reaching a terabit in terms of network capacity. We've got more than 400 sites connected to our network, meaning the 26 universities, 12 research councils, 50 TVET colleges and their different campuses. We've got international bandwidth, as I've mentioned. We've got access to the 5 submarine cables to ensure that we are fully connected to the international communities. And we are supporting the TVET colleges through SABAN. This is the project we are actively engaging on, and I've highlighted that we've recently transferred 100 gigs from South Africa to America. So it's gone are those days whereby we are couriering hard drives and to do data transfer between research institutions. So our next steps is to support the digital transformation of the higher education environment. We are continuously improving and upgrading our bandwidth. We are fully meshing our backbone because of load shedding. A number of single points of failure were exposed. So we are ensuring most of the campuses have got redundant links and we are connecting the TVET, and we are also prioritizing the national research initiatives such as Sarao, as we've mentioned, to ensure that we are enabling our science, research, education, and innovation community. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Dlamini. I'd like to call Mr. Mervyn Christoffels from CHPC as well.
We can allow them opportunity to sit down before we start. And welcome to our students. You're very welcome here today, and I hope you enjoy your time. There's a reason why they left the CSPC for last, right? I mean, there's always a reason for that. So I'm going to start by saying that every family member has one of these, right? It's that family member that we all know is full of drama. They take risks. They ask a lot of questions when they're around. They always push the boundaries. They question everything. They challenge the norms. And they're a little bit rebellious, right? And at the CSPC, we feel like we are that type of group, right? We always take risks. We don't like the rules. Actually, in fact, we question the rules. We challenge the norm, and we try to push the boundaries as far as possible. And how do we do that? Well, we have two mandates at the CSPC. I think the first one I want to share with you is that we accelerate and enable academic, scientific, and the growing private sector community by providing digital research infrastructure and support. Now, it's important to understand we do both, right? We enable it, but we also accelerate it. And I'll talk a little bit about how we do both in a second. I think the second thing we do, which is something that I think we're trying to grow, is that we contribute to the research practice through applied research. Not scientific research, but applied research, where we seek to create knowledge through solving practical problems. And for those of you who have worked with the CSPC for a while will understand there's a treasure trove of insights and understanding on how to deploy digital research infrastructure at the CSPC. So what I've done, instead of spending, I heard 5 minutes, but obviously 10 minutes is what the CSPC think about because we're rebellious. I'm trying to summarize what we do at the CSPC in the one slide. So let's talk a little bit about our digital research infrastructure. So there are 4 key components in our environment. We have a high-performance cluster called Ngao, and for those of you who do not know what a high-performance cluster is, was HPC, it's a high-performance computing platform where we enable research through high-performance parallel processing. There we go, our first geeky word for the day, parallel processing. And we do that through our current high-performance supercomputer cluster. Now, for those of you who are not aware, there's some exciting news about this, that we are planning to upgrade our supercomputer to be the fastest on the African continent come next year. So by next year, we will have the fastest supercomputer on the African continent. That's quite exciting for us. Like you said, we are a little bit like, we like drama, right? CBC, we like drama. So that's how we roll, and that's how we operate. So we enable research through that way, but we also accelerate research. So the growing demand for AI, machine learning, is there, and we all know it, we see it. And so we have a GPU cluster, and we use that to accelerate research. And for those of you who also know, we're full of drama, we are going to upgrade our current GPU cluster to a faster GPU cluster so we can meet some of this growing demand that's taking place within our environment. We also have a localized cloud platform, and we believe that we need competition in the cloud space because there isn't. And so we have built and developed a localized cloud platform where we are hosting quite a number of cloud services. And the idea for us is to take this particular product into the market. So we don't want to keep it for ourselves, but we want to start to introduce local cloud services into the African market. And then last of all, we have a much more smaller cluster that we support our CERN Alice experiment with. And then we support all of our services through very skilled, competent individuals across multiple domains. So if you're sitting in chemistry, in physics, in engineering, in math, we can support you with your workloads and with your research projects. Then we believe in collaboration and partnerships. That for us is very important. And so if you want to work with highly skilled individuals that's full of drama, that take risks, that ask lots of questions, that's a little bit rebellious, we're the team for you, right? And so we essentially have a couple of significant collaborations. And for those of you who are not aware, that about 2 weeks ago, the Center for High Performance Computing hosted the weather service. So they were moving to a new data center, and we became their fallback. And for about 2 weeks, your weather report that you saw was actually, in fact, being processed at the CSPC. The pity, they should have said that, right? They should have said that after SABC, powered by the Center for High Performance Computing. But but be that as may. We also have a collaboration with the CERN, and so we kind of have a facility in Rosebank where we offload some of the analysis data on a tier 2 node. And then we have quite a number of partnerships within this sector regarding localized cloud projects, and then we also have a collaboration with Source. We also believe in partnering with disruptive technology communities. And for this, it's important for us, right? And we see there's quite a number of emerging communities. For example, the deep learning team, and some of them are here today. And we've created a special track just for our partners. We want to partner with them early on in the process so we can start to enable and support some of the work they're doing. We also have been selected to be South African quantum computing hub. And so we are trying to kind of create the quantum computing infrastructure services so we can start to grow quantum computing skills within the South African economy. Now you're thinking, yeah, Mervyn, quantum computing, I don't have a laptop. There are people that kind of are not even understanding computers, but yet we are talking about these frontier novel technologies. But we have to, right? We have to kind of also ensure that we build the bridge between where the world is going and kind of where we're sitting in our own context. And then we do a lot of training. For those of you who know the CFPC, we train almost every month. It's a winter school, we have a summer school, and I'm surprised we don't have an autumn school and a spring school, but we are focused on training and development, and also we focus on ensuring that our students are challenged. And so we have a student cluster competition, which is happening here today, and this particular team then goes on, the winning team, goes on to participate at an international level. But all of this is not possible without dedicated, highly skilled individuals. So at the CSPC, we have a highly dedicated, skilled team of dramatic risk takers, rebellious individuals, and they kind of create what you see today. And that's the CSPC view. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mervyn. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please just give another round of applause for all our speakers who were able to take... Thank you. They were able to take a large number of highlights for the year and compress it into 5 minutes, and they did it. So thank you for that. Welcome again to the students and learners from Jacob Mdluli Secondary School. Thank you for joining us today. We're moving into the second part of the program, ladies and gentlemen, and that's our keynote addresses. So I'm going to call up Mr. Mark Sherritt and Mr. Sean Hensman on stage. During their talk, towards the end of it, they will open it up for a Q&A, so we'll have a roving mic should you have any questions about the information you've heard, and they will then take questions from the floor as well as answer them. So please give you a round of a hand of applause, to Mark and Sean. Thank you.
How do I do it? Sorry, where's Mervyn? I love what you're doing. I would love to join your group. I think I love solving problems and stuff, but I can't work a computer. Yeah, the email decision. That's it. All good? Yeah, and how do I move through them with arrows? Okay, cool. All right, thanks. Yeah, all good. Probably the most nerve-wracking thing I've done all year is standing in front of everybody here. So please forgive me for the jitters in my voice. It's one of my strong points, and that's why Mark's invited me along just to hold his hand today. But anyway, my name's Sean Hensman. I'm from the Roy Hensman Conservation and Research Unit, and we're working with Mark on a really cool project, which I'm very excited about. Goes along with what Mervyn's just finished off with, I think, trying to find solutions in an ever-changing and modernizing Africa. And just solving the base of trying to help wildlife across the continent. I don't know if any of you guys are aware, but yesterday was World Wildlife Conservation Day, so it's really nice to be here with that in mind from yesterday, and just working together, using technology, using common knowledge to help preserve wildlife. So I'm here to talk about the conundrum that faces elephants We have a huge population decline. There's elephant population has gone from about 4 million elephants in 1920 across Africa to only about 400,000 left in Africa today. If you think our problem in Africa is bad, Asia has lost most of its elephant population. They're sitting with around 50,000 elephants today, which is terrible. The reason being, the other two sides of the coin, is the human population has increased significantly, and it's gone from 200 million people in 1920 to 1.3 billion people today, and by 2050 it's set to double, so we'll have 2.6 billion people in Africa. It's really, really, concerning, and yeah, it poses a whole bunch of issues. From housing, how do we house the population? How do we provide enough food for the people? How do we give them land for agriculture? How do we give them land for cattle, etc., and also for wildlife? Energy production is also a huge issue with regards to that. And if you look at our current issues across Africa, most of the African continent earn about $2 a day. So when you're trying to tell them to look after wildlife and have wildlife in their backyard and protect it, when they've got more pressing issues, trying to feed their children, trying to look after their families, it's very, very difficult. But yeah. So if you look at today's present elephant protected areas, elephants are confined to 6% of the land they used to have. That land is normally the worst quality land. It's not good enough for our agriculture, not good enough for our livestock, and we don't really want to go and live there. It's in the middle of hot areas, and this is why places like Kruger National Park were actually formed, because they were places where we couldn't have our cattle, where people didn't want to come and live because of the tsetse fly problems, etc. But going back to those people who earn $2 a day, there's a huge amount of human-elephant conflict that remains in those areas where there are elephant populations and other wildlife. The other sad thing is, with the elephant population sitting within 6% of the land of Africa, we're still messing around in the elephant's land. There's still humans going to the last wilderness to visit the last wilderness areas, or building lodges in those last wilderness areas. Victoria Falls sits with 3 lodges being built, it sits with 1 lodge being built every 3 months in Vic Falls alone. If you look at the Zambezi and the development along there, we're piling in tourists and visitors to those last wilderness areas. So even though we've confined wildlife or our elephants to 6% of that land, we're now messing around in those spaces. Elephants face a huge, are highly intelligent animals and move very freely if they have to. So we faced this issue the other day. These are photos of one of the reserves in our area where elephants have actually pushed down a fence and have moved across that fence, even though it's highly electrified and it's supposed to keep people and elephants out, etc. I don't know if any of you guys are aware, but elephants are highly intelligent animals. And that fence might look like a difficult thing for one of us to cross or for them, but the elephants, I'll just explain what they do. So they'll walk up to the bottom of the fence, if you look over here, and they'll see those white bobbins are all electrified. So those are electrified cables. The elephants will walk up to it, and they'll hold the top of the fence, and they'll slowly manipulate it. If it shocks them, then they'll leave it. They'll push the bottom of the fence with their foot over here, and they'll slowly press it down until it shorts out, and then they can reverse across it. They're even bright enough to push the youngsters through the fence first and see if they react to it. And they go and then, incredibly, their sense of feeling in their trunk is incredible. So they'll actually hold their trunk across the electric fence, and when they feel the energy of the electricity going through the fence, they'll actually pull it and then release it. And they'll slowly manipulate the fence until it breaks. And then they've also figured out that their tusks don't conduct electricity. So they'll put their tusks into the fence, rip it up, and walk through it. So you're working with, basically, if anyone's watched Jurassic Park, you're working with one of those highly intelligent little animals that has a plan, wants to go somewhere, and you've got to try and stop it. So they want to move, they want to go and do their thing, and they want to get out and be elephants, what they've been doing for millennia anyway. If you look at the present day migrations, the areas in dark, these areas are where elephants are actually migrating. They've proven migration routes. There are humans still in those areas, and then there's the white routes, the white areas up in the top corner here where elephants could potentially migrate. But yeah, so these areas have still got issues. We're busy working on a project in the northern part of Zambia where elephants have actually been migrating through a part of the DRC, and when they go through the DRC area, they get poached. So we're trying to see if there's a way of us using this technology to encourage the elephants to stay within Zambia so that they don't go into the DRC. I think another thing is that in a modernizing Africa and overpopulating Africa, fencing is going to become the norm. Kenya, you might have noticed the other day, burnt about $10 million worth of ivory, and one of the first things they asked for was money to buy fencing to help with human-elephant conflict. In South Africa, most of our reserves are tiny little islands of elephants, and elephants don't have the ability to migrate within South Africa, which I think is a very big issue for items like genetics and various things like that. We've also got all the veterinary fences that are there that stop elephants migrating and other wildlife for cattle and that sort of thing, so that we're not passing on human or foot and mouth. And then, there are still some wildlife areas like the Kaza area, which is up in the Zambezi, between Botswana, Zambia, Zimbabwe, etc., which are all allowing elephants to sort of migrate. But those are hugely populated, and the elephants can't really migrate out of that because they keep on touching on human communities. So even though you've got these beautiful wilderness areas and there aren't fences, in essence, the communities on the outside of those areas are the fence. And elephants have been observed to move into those areas and then move out during the day, and then also move through those areas at about 3 times the normal speed at nighttime. So human population is a huge problem for elephants, and it's something that we're trying to solve with Mark. So I'm going to hand over to him, and he can carry on. He's much better at talking than I am, so there we go. Cool.
Thanks, Sean. So Sean's really given us an introduction to the problem, and this is part of the solution. So I run an architectural practice. We have an R&D division that is really about, solving hardcore global challenges around climate change and sustainability. Again, I'm an architect by background. So this is the plan. This is a 1,000-kilometer migration route for the African elephant across the Limpopo province of South Africa. Where we're sitting at the moment is Kruger National on the right-hand side. You've got Mozambique on the other side of the border on that side. So the red line is wildlife corridors. That would be new areas, mainly privately owned land, that link the green areas, which are publicly owned land, that most of them still contain elephant. The idea around this is, again, to provide a precedent for the rest of Africa. Most of Africa's system is open. They don't have fences. Elephants move across border lines. In South Africa, we've got a really strong case to show how do we do this within a closed system of fenced areas. If you zoom into that route, the red area is where we've implemented our proof of concept project. You can see the bigger route around that. So the excitement is really around how do we connect these smaller parcels of land that are too small to kind of house elephant by themselves with these wildlife corridors, and also allow kind of privately owned land, if you've got cattle or any kind of other game, to allow elephants to move across your land temporarily as they migrate. Elephants are naturally migratory. That's why they break these fences. It's generally the young males that want to get out and explore new territory. They generally migrate between 60 and 80 kilometers per day. These are the land parcels around where we've implemented our proof of concept. So you can see most of them are compartmentalized. The two blue areas are landowners that want elephants. So the one landowner has elephant. The one to the north wants elephant. And the little red area is where Sean is based with Adventures with Elephants, where we've actually implemented the technology itself. The little red dots, so there's two technological components. The first one is an automatic elephant gate that uses AI camera technology to identify what an elephant looks like, and it only allows that animal through the fence line. And then the little dotted circles around that little dot is our infrasonic sounding tower. So we've got a musician who did his master's in elephant acoustics. Elephants communicate with infrasound, which is about 20 hertz and lower, outside of human hearing. And he's designed an elephant language to communicate with the animals to teach them how to use the route. So those are your two technology types. Really how it works is elephants can hear, at the moment we think to about 4 kilometers at infrasonic range. The speaker that we've designed communicates to about 2 kilometers. And then the idea is to have strategically placed sounding towers at about 10-kilometer intervals to lead this animal along the route and provide perhaps water or food at these watering points. Again, the most important, I almost said person, elephant to teach how to use the route is the matriarch that leads the family unit. And again, elephant's memory is incredible. So once you teach the matriarch that this is a safe route to use, she remembers that for the rest of her family life and passes that on to the next generation. These were naively our first kind of conceptual images around creating these sounding towers. We first thought we must put the speakers high in some kind of scaffold structure. You'll see as we really did a lot of research around infrasound how the design changed. But the idea is around rebranding the elephant itself to really move it away from something that's a meat source or an ivory source and start to uplift rural communities. Many of these communities are very poor. And how do we rebrand the elephant as something that's an asset to these local communities that they seek to protect them? So the first year, the idea is that we feed elephant locally fruiting indigenous trees, so things like the marula. They can easily be used to take out an exotic and invasive species. After 5 years, something like the marula tree grows very quickly, about 1.5 meters per year. And so you already have kind of the starting of a regenerated landscape. Then after 10 years, you've got a 10 to 14 meter tree. And the idea around this is to start to quantify the effect of the elephant on the landscape in terms of carbon sequestration. We know that marulas themselves, in a kind of dense landscape, absorb about 1.9 tons of carbon per acre for decades. So as long as you're protecting that strip, you can start to quantify the effect of the elephant on a landscape and justify financial and economic supports through carbon credits. Again, it's kind of valuing the animal and its effect on the landscape with a different metric other than just meat and ivory. Marula, as most of the South Africans in the room know, incredible fruit, staple food across many people north in Limpopo province. Great high vitamin C content, bigger than or more than the orange. The seed, very high in protein, and so again, celebrating local food sources that are sourced in Africa, adapted to our climate, and scaling that in terms of supporting food security. And then really what I'm interested in is how does this route affect cities? You know, you saw some of those routes go quite close to Pretoria and to Johannesburg. You know, what Cape Town has done with the penguin and kind of integrating conservation into the city network might be quite interesting. So how would the city have to change if its citizen base included endangered wildlife? This is us building the Elephant Gate proof of concept. This is some of the spectrographs that were done by the musician. So he mapped, obviously, elephant calls. He did a comprehensive study of every species that used low frequency sound in the area, so things like frogs, birds. Everything below 20 on the y-axis is that infrasonic layer, and we're just starting to understand scientifically all the information that is within that. So infrasound was, in terms of elephants using it, was discovered in about the 1960s, and we now know there's different dialects across Africa, there's different languages across elephants across Africa. They can identify male and female if they know the animal or not. So there's a great opportunity for us to start to integrate technology, both AI and sound technology, into this kind of database system. This is some of the studies that we've done for the southern ground hornbill, which is a threatened species in the Limpopo area. So we want to make sure we didn't mess with that system. There's no confusion that an elephant is calling, or it's confused with a truck or something else. The design of the sound is very unique. This is really the technology in one render. So you've got the gate, automatic elephant gate with the fence opening. You've got camera technology on a timber pole. You've got all our computer equipment within a DB box. And then the actual megaphone of the sound is within a biomass insulated concrete box, which is really just timber and concrete combined. So it's a net negative embodied carbon material. And that you can see is low to the ground. So infrasound is a very big wavelength, about a meter, and it uses the ground to crawl along. That's how it actually gets so far. So when you hear lightning, that thunder vibrates your house, that is infrasound. And then around the CCTV cameras is a Faraday cage. I'll talk a little bit about that, and everything is obviously supplied by photovoltaic technology and battery backup. So the Faraday cage, we took inspiration from elephant skin. So African elephants are different to Asian elephants in terms of their skin is designed to crack. Elephants don't sweat. So those cracks, those micro cracks fill with things like mud and water, and that evaporative cooling is what cools the animal. That's been translated into a lattice microstructure that we translated into an aluminium skin that becomes our Faraday cage. So to both protect the equipment from lightning, as well as through evaporative cooling, cool the equipment for the heat. Again, speaker design, most of our speakers are designed for human hearing, so we actually had to invent an infrasonic speaker. It was a very strange experience standing in front of the speaker, and you could not hear the sound, but you could feel the water in your body vibrating. So yeah, different professionals working together to really come together and create a very unique outcome. This is a first in the world as we understand it. And I think probably my biggest takeaway from this and my skill as an architect is to bring these multidisciplinary professionals together. And I think that's the excitement of what a conference like this does. We're seeing a blurring between the lines of different professionals in different disciplines, and how we get to integrate and work together to produce amazing solutions to our very, very difficult African problems is the excitement that I have in terms of being on this continent and being in this country. Again, technology, very, very important in terms of that. And this was quite a big moment for us. This is the AI correctly identifying what an elephant looks like. The elephant's moving through a fence line attracted by the sound that we had designed. And so, yeah, there's great excitement. And the next phase of the project is to scale it across provincial and privately owned landholders throughout Limpopo and the rest of Africa. Again, basically everything that was done in this project, it's been about a 3-year research process, has been done from a volunteer point of view. People just really passionate about solving problems around conservation and human-elephant conflict. So yeah, thank you to the sponsors and partners. Thank you very, very much for your time. We'll take some questions. Yes. I think we've got 2 roving mics. Yes, there's one there. Lady in the front. How many rows? 1, 2, 3, 4 row. This was the one lady in the front.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Very exciting and interesting. I have a key question for you. I see that you have made such great strides in designing materials that can help in protecting the animals, and you have introduced a lot of technology in their environment to protect them. But my question is, how effective is this technology, and how natural are the animals in their natural habitats while we have so much technology monitoring and governing their existence?
It's a great question. I think the excitement around the elephant and using the elephant as a candidate for wildlife corridors is because it's so intelligent. So elephants obviously are already exposed to a huge amount of man-made noise, if that's planes or trucks. I think the excitement of this project is being able to train them to access the world now as it's changing. Sean spoke about the increase in cities in Africa, and a lot of that's informal. So, putting in this infrastructure early for African cities that are growing to try and maybe control urban sprawl is one of the options from an urban design point of view. But I think if we don't start to train animals, something like the elephant that can be an umbrella species, kind of protecting other species underneath it, I think we'll start to see our wildlife go the rest of the other continents in the world where most of the mass extinctions in North America, Australia, South America was done because of people. So I think that's really our excitement around that in terms of bringing the animal much closer to the rural space and teaching them how to engage with things like technology. Sean, I don't know if you got.
I'd also like to add to that as the human population, as Africa modernizes, I think there's going to be much more pressure on those wildlife areas, and wildlife is going to become very managed. I don't think Africa is an ideal world anymore, and I think if through this technology we can enable elephants to migrate and to utilize areas that they wouldn't normally have access to. So if Mark goes back to our corridor concept in the area that we currently are, there's a herd of elephants that are within a small 8,000 hectare reserve, but there's reserves next door that are 4,000 hectares in size. But because of the law, they wouldn't be allowed to have elephants. And so allowing technology to allow elephants into that space by training them or getting them to understand to access the gate, and then to come back the following day or to migrate through it, would enable us to actually open that area up to about 100,000 hectares for those elephants. So what we're trying to do is just allow technology to open up and to give elephants the space that they once had. It might be artificial, by managing them through those spaces, but we're trying to give them the best that we possibly can as humans take over. Does that make sense?
And I'm sure there's people in the room also that can think about the data capturing components of just having almost a pinprick of something that's connected to Wi-Fi with endless power. So obviously the device is designed to call the elephant, but you can design listening devices for biodiversity monitoring. You can have climate data captured at these points. So the data capturing and the usage of that, of having these kind of pinpricks of infrastructure across rural areas, is also there for suppliers. There's a question at the back.
I just wanted to maybe continue on that. I'm not really convinced that we are doing them any good because of the amount of intelligence that we are gathering and that we are using to track them, which can be used, of course, for the good. But as a poacher, I can hack into your system and also use that same information to track them and cause harm and damage them. So it's a double-edged sword. Who else has access to this data and what are they using it for? Some can be using it for damaging the animals. And furthermore, the evolutionary theory says that animals are able to adapt to the changes in their environment by naturally learning their environments and developing new instincts. So now if we are using technology, it means we are killing that natural instinct. They are becoming dependent on what the humans are doing to monitor and direct them, which means maybe we'll achieve the opposite of what we want. The animals will get extinct because they are unable to evolve and adapt to changes in environment on their own. Thank you.
That's a great question.
It's a fantastic question. So, as I said, in the DRC, there's the area where elephants are migrating. They're utilizing a route, and they're getting poached. Yeah, that's a natural route. They're getting poached and they're getting drilled. And this system is designed to enable us to monitor them as they're going. It'll inform the rangers where they are. It'll inform the scientists who can monitor them and follow them. And so the whole system is followed. The technology is protected. The information only goes to the rangers, much like Seymour and other technological advances that are happening here in Kruger, for example. So that information is only given to specific people and it's protected from people accessing it. It is a problem. Some apps we're talking about it with David this morning, some apps are telling people where elephants are. I mean, you take a photograph and it's geolocated, it'll tell a person that there's a rhino at X position. We don't want to try and do that. We know that our gates are at certain points. We can monitor the amount of elephant that come in. We can monitor the amount of elephant that come back out. The rangers who get that information know that 10 elephant have come in and it might be herd A, B, C, and then they know to monitor them in that specific area. And you're 100% correct. Elephants are intelligent animals. They work on their environment, and all we're doing is giving them new information to work on and enable them to migrate so that they can access new areas to get food, to breed, to spread their genes, etc., etc. So using our intelligence and the training techniques behind it and allowing them to learn to move through areas as naturally as we can, then they'll be able to migrate and do the things that they can. And we can expand land for wildlife by doing that. Yeah. Again, humans, elephants used to go into communities at nighttime, and then in the daytime they'd come out of those communal areas. Why? Because the more human activity there is, they get chased out of those areas. So they learn to utilize that space and come out, and we're just trying to protect them and give them the corridor and the space to utilize with willing partners who want elephants on their land, who want to have those elephants moving through their spaces. Cool. So there's no conflict. I think David had a question, and then I'll come to you.
Can you hear me? Yes. David Gwyn Evans, casabi.org. I've got a biodiversity NGO that documents plants and animals. And so my thinking has been, as someone who walks out in the field a lot, I try to hug the shade. I try to stay in the cool when I walk. Have elephants ever had temperature probes put on them to determine whether they hug lines of coolness?
So that's also a very good question, and to my knowledge, no. No, not that I'm aware. They do tend to stick to riverine areas or never really walk too far off a riverine area. There are obviously desert elephants, etc. And that would be where they would get access to water, cool trees and shade. But in terms of having temperature probes on elephants, no research that I'm aware of. Yeah.
So it's a several-part question. The next part is we're familiar with camera traps where cameras photograph animals, but have cameras ever been put on elephants in order to see what they see, essentially?
We're working with a group from Princeton University to look at how elephants are with satellite imagery to see how they utilize spaces and how they're using areas. But I don't think that there's ever been anything that's ever been put onto an elephant that is able to monitor what they see. Our collars monitor where elephants go, and from that you can get a basic understanding of what they are experiencing, whether they're going to water, whether they're going to trees, which pathways they're using. In fact, going back to what the lady said earlier with the anti-poaching that we're doing up in Zambia, following corridors that elephants move, and we know that they utilize certain areas. It helps the anti-poaching teams to utilize those pathways to get to a point quickly. So I guess that's the only knowledge that we can get, is from following where they've been, what they're doing, and what those routes are, and where they cross, if they cross rivers or if they cross, high vegetation areas, etc. One project that we are working on is a smart collar, because we want to be able to tell the elephant that you're getting into trouble. If they are moving into an area that they don't, that we don't want them in, using geofencing, we can actually pre-warn the elephant with vibrations or sound and say, hey chap, you're going to get into an area with human activity or somewhere that you shouldn't really be. And if we can let them know that that element of their surprise moving into an area is over, hopefully that we can then divert them from those areas.
So the final part is, as we're at a conference with computing and where machine learning is a large topic, if one did have a camera on an elephant and you could then use machine learning to encode what plants and animals are around that elephant, together with a temperature probe, together with GPS, one could get not just immediate information as to the kind of habitats they're living and choosing, but you could also get long-term information about vegetation change and stuff like that. And I think it's a really exciting possibility, having elephants and machine learning combined.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Great.
There was this gentleman. Yeah.
Hi. Just to add to what the gentleman said on the other side, we've got a unit down in Cape Town, which is also part of the CSIR. Oh, my name is Ricardo. I'm from the CHPC team. And I was actually fortunate to sit next to the gentleman yesterday to explain the birth of the elephants on our tour yesterday. Just coming back. So we've got vessels that they monitor around South Africa. Ships that comes in and out of our waters, so they do a lot of satellite imaging and thermal imaging, and I think those are technologies that is currently available, and as the elephants migrate, you should be able to, or there should be some satellite imaging that is available for that particular area, the particular time frame. And I think we can also use machine learning to monitor the type of behavior that that's occurring in that particular area. And I think it is available. And elephants are big enough to be spotted maybe on a satellite, depending on how powerful that lens is. So I think there is alternatives to that before we actually go in and really do the more detailed type of technology that also might be impacting the environment itself and also interfere with the elephant itself. So the other comment I want to make is, as these elephants migrate and you learn and teach them how to use different routes, those routes, those biodiversity areas starts flourishing. Maybe elephant waste, dung, that is seeds coming from one area to the other area. And there's also an economic impact, so that it can actually enhance the economic impact for specific areas depending on how you actually teach them to migrate. So I think that is just a few comments that I would like to make. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so from our side, one of the reasons we're looking at this autogate is because of the elephant damage to the reserves that they're in. So South Africa's elephant population is highly fragmented, and those elephants are confined to these small reserves where they are damaging trees, where they are damaging the environment, to such an extent that some trees are basically going extinct within that reserve. So one of the ideas is to allow them to get out, to utilize land that they wouldn't normally have access to, and to just take off the pressure off those reserves. And so from that perspective, that's what we're looking at from that side of it. But I couldn't agree with you. I think wildlife needs to be able to give value to people in the areas, and that one of the ways of doing that is through tourism, ecotourism. And if people are benefiting from elephants, they're going to want to have them. If they're not benefiting from them, if there's human-elephant conflict and all of those issues, people are going to chase them off cliffs like they've done, and they're going to poison them and they're going to poach them, and that's what they're going to do, from that perspective. So if we can encourage those communities to live in harmony and live in sync with those elephants and allow those elephants into those areas with people and allow it to happen safely, then hopefully everybody can thrive and survive together. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Mascole Ngumbesi. I am from the University of Cape Town, but I'm not speaking on behalf of the institution. I'm not even involved in the field, but as I was seeing the case being presented, I could picture a number of stakeholders who could be affected by this route. And we also have issues of migration in the country, and probably, but then because this is all happening within South Africa, when it's scaled, it could be another effect at another time. But I was thinking more of an issue which has been touched on, a little bit of the community buy-in, where the communities that are affected or that will be in which the elephants could be moving, it would be important to also give them a lot of opportunities for buy-in so that they can identify trees that can be used by elephants for consumption, for their foliage and eating, so that they don't actually use them for fire, and also the prospects of the roots being nodes that are now the tourist, the elephant route, and you have a lot of tourism building around that. And it's then important to be ready to anticipate those kind of moves. And also the towers are not looking as friendly to the eye, and they could also be redesigned and repainted with green, even adding more services so that the communities affected could actually see them as valuable, where they could be transmitters of either Wi-Fi for the neighboring communities, but where the towers cannot just be those ugly structures, but the communities affected can actually see value in having those towers, and they actually have an interest to protect it, because when you have that kind of infrastructure invested and sitting in the wildlife or in the wild out there, the vandalism aspect can also come in. So when you can then have a lot more people monitoring that, I think those will actually
I couldn't agree more with you. As long as these programs have value to the community and uplift communities, it's going to, they must have buy-in, and they must be protected, and they must have benefit to them. We've got the ugly cell phone towers that have been designed to look like trees, and things like that. So those are programs. What Mark has touched on is the gate, but we've also got towers which actually produce water at watering points. So this was for the communities and the farmers around Etosha. And what was happening was elephants were going into community cattle areas and destroying their cattle watering points. So now what we're trying to do is have a corridor for where the elephants can go, where the towers are calling the elephants. And when an elephant arrives at the tower, at the watering point, it identifies the elephant, the AI identifies that it's an elephant, it releases water for the elephant. And that way that elephant gets rewarded for going that route. Whereas in the southern section, or in the other section where the cattle are, the same tower identifies an elephant, and it'll suck away the water, and the elephant doesn't get a reward for going to that tower. So they go to their towers where they get a reward, and they can utilize that route. Whereas in the other sections where the cattle are, they don't. And then the auto tower says a cow and then releases water for just the cow. So we're getting the elephants to utilize a certain route that is with the sounding towers and stuff, and they get rewarded for the water, etc. They utilize their environment, they learn how to use it to their advantage, and then the cattle in the cattle areas can then also produce water for cattle, but not for elephants. So there's no reward for the elephants going into the cattle areas. And that's to try and prevent that human-elephant conflict, but also to try and assist those communities to benefit from cattle, etc. I keep coming back to you, but the mic is going around in circles behind you. Yeah.
All right, good morning. My name is Katlawa from the University of Limpopo. Maybe on a lighter note, I just got intrigued when you mentioned that there's an elephant musician and there are dialects for elephants, and it got me curious if there are some genres like Amapiano for elephants, or if it be that the issues that we find in natural language processing, the complexities can also be found in elephants, but perhaps that's a conversation we can comment on. But what I wanted you to perhaps comment on is what are some of the present challenges or limitations in view of how AI and HPC could be used, if it be that you have looked into the difficulties that are there in AI and HPC that if unblocked could help accelerate the thrusts that are done to address the concerns with elephant migration.
Thank you for the question. I think on the AI side, it's training the program. The program was borrowed from the security industry to which can identify if you've got a gun or knife in your hand. So I think that process of training is still happening. Sometimes you can have a warthog. The certain angle looks like an elephant at scale. So you got to keep training the program as it's going. And because it's in such early stages, I think there is going to be a lot of R&D and kind of pressure testing as we scale it. So that was, some of the challenges. I don't know if you've got anything else to add. I know we're happy to talk to other people for other questions afterwards. I know we're out of time, so just, thank you very much for your time.
I think just...
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want a photo?
Another round of applause to Mark and Sean.
Sean, photo.
As mentioned, they will still be around, so you're more than welcome to engage them on the topic that they've just handed to us. With that being said, our second keynote speaker is also ready, Dr. Utz Uwehouse.
Yeah, that's the right one.
You don't have a PowerPoint over there?
Let's try to start with the first.
Do you have a PowerPoint?
Hmm?
Do you have a PowerPoint?
No, this is PDF.
So we have to scroll through it now.
So you're seeing the middle. We're trying to get back to the beginning. There we go.
This is the beginning.
And it's asking for an upgrade on that screen, but that's not important.
Okay,
All right.
I'll come fix it.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. So thank you to the organizers. Thank you to all of you making it here at this early hour. A full room is always good to have. And to keep with this animal theme in the morning session, I didn't know that the first talk had so many elephants. I didn't bring an elephant, but I brought one of the small curious deers. I have an elephant at the back, but we have to get through the talk first. So one of the curious deers that we saw yesterday on this wonderful trip that I enjoyed a lot. I hope the curiosity is with you for my talk, which tries to go into more of the foundations of how we can make HPC and technology work for us beyond exascale. For those younger in the audience who don't know what exascale is, that's the current level of large-scale computing we can do. In the old measurement unit, as some of the trade are saying, which is a floating point operation per second, and an exa is one of the units you learn in high school, that's 10 to the 18, of these operations per second. So those are machines we can actually make now, and it's been a nice progress over the last 20, 30 years of just 10 timing the number you see every few years, but we realize there is a limit to what we can sustain, not just because of load shedding, but because of general availability of energy, even in places that have a dedicated power plant just for the HPC system. So the topics that come up here that I want to highlight, both from the industry side of Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, but also from the part that I come from, namely the research labs of Hewlett-Packard, is federation. Federation being the process, and it's always a process, it's not a result that you see in federation, the process of bringing stakeholders with their installations together to work for a single topic. We'll come to that in a bit more detail later. Workflows in particular across these facilities and large-scale AI, which are the frontiers. Not zeta scale, which would be 10 to the 21 units of computation per second, which is not sustainable. And so the exascale area of research is here. So the era that you're all working in is categorized by massive data growth. We see that, like if you put a video camera on an elephant, that's a normal thought nowadays in science. But imagine the amount of footage that you have. When is your SD card going to be full? How are you going to change that on the elephant? Every week, every month, every year? Do you want a constant wireless transmitting device on that elephant? How do you power that? How do you collect the data at inspection points or continuously? How do you get the data off? How do you move it across the network? We saw the network talk in the beginning. 100 gigabit is a lot, but you need much more if you have a whole herd constantly producing that stream of video footage. So you can't, right? You have to somehow compress the data, analyze it on site. And on site can mean on an elephant or on a bat, but it can also mean at one production site of the SKA, which is a much larger installation. But again, you can't get the data from Australia to South Africa or both of them to Britain or Germany or Switzerland, which gets 3.8% of all the SKA data eventually. How do you move that, right? We have larger AI models. The model's becoming so big you can't store them where you wanted to store them. So you have to put them on big machinery. And we have new algorithms. New algorithms is always fine. Scientists in some disciplines are essentially paid by algorithm, but some of them challenge what our compute structures have been like. And that's good, but it's a challenge. But only those three together give you the performance that we want to see, or hinder it, depending on how you approach things. Sustainability is a huge topic, because just growth is not sustainable. And so efficiency is probably one of the drivers that we can target. If you're more efficient in what you're doing, you may delay the sustainability challenge a bit more. It doesn't help you from solving it or approaching it, considering it in all your actions, but efficiency is the short-term solution to many things. Now, I have to give, because this is a sponsorship talk, I have to give one corporate slide here, which I think is informational for those who didn't make it to supercomputing. We still have Frontier, and we have someone from Oak Ridge here, Frontier in the US being the largest system on the planet, #1 supercomputer measured in this classic unit of compute. It also has one of the largest storage systems on the planet, or is getting that size of an exabyte raw capacity. That's quite sizable. There's also many more systems that moved up in this list. But again, this is the kind of comparison of people showing their different cars and saying mine drives 5 kilometers per hour faster than yours. The question is, which roads are you going to use, right? And how do you make sure that you get it to the garage in time for a service to not have it break down entirely? And that's the scope. In exascale, things are as fragile as they always are when you're at the top level of performance. A race car is not something you take out in the safari, right? But if you operate it well, you care for it well, it does exactly the job it's designed for. It's a scientific instrument, not a general purpose compute. And somewhere in between to the laptop, right, which is considered everyday active material, and we just take a new one if one is broken, but it's replaceable, it's an entity we seem to understand most of the days, unless the video conference doesn't work. And at the high end, we have these scientific instruments made for a purpose. And they're there to help us solve the problems of society. Clean energy is one of the big ones. Energy supply stability is one that's very pertinent down here in South Africa, but also in Central Europe. Material science, that's the interesting part for engineer, always has been in supercomputing. Healthcare is getting there. One of the big challenges here is security. HPC systems traditionally have been working on a research basis. You trust your fellow researcher, except some that copy your data, but generally you trust each other, so you want to work together. That's what fosters good research. And healthcare, in some areas, does the same, but in other areas needs to protect patient data, needs to protect the security of your study data. And that's one of the big challenges, how to run such a huge system in a way that we're used to from some on-premise, air-gapped, as we say, so not connected to the outside world systems, because none of us wants their genomic data just spread around with name and address and insurance premiums, you know? So that's a technical challenge, but it's a very interesting one, how to run a secure compute environment on an HPC system. And we've seen a great example of environmental studies where I think, especially the learning part, is considered easy now, right? It's a CCTV security problem to identify elephants. Now, elephants are kind of nice. They're reasonably big. They have very nice features. If you want to distinguish, again, my favorite example, different species of bats, might be much more harder to have the training data available and identify them because they're not that pronounced in their minor differences. And so that's where compute comes in, right? When the differences are small and you still need to distinguish. All right, so let me start with a bit of sustainability because that's one of the focus areas that my team is working on. The corporate side of that is maybe also interesting because it's not shown often enough. HPE, like many other companies, has a plan to become net zero as an enterprise earlier than the world goals that are being discussed. So 2040 is our current timeline. If you've never heard about the scope, emission scope system, it's quite simple. Scope 1 is what happens to you as a company or as an entity consuming things. Scope 2 is the one, what is your product doing while you handle it, and Scope 3 is what is happening at your customer. So for HPE, clearly our office heating and cooling is one part that's in Scope 1 and 2. Our suppliers, we can control them and shift them on to the customer, because in the end, if I buy a chip and I sell it again, it's out of my scope. Most of our scope is on the customer side. We sell a system, it's going to run for 5 years, 10 years, and that's where most of the emissions happen, because it consumes energy, it needs to be recycled at some point, so there is more. And we try to reduce the part we can directly control in our facilities, in our offices, in our trip statistics. We travel much less than we used to. Now, I've flown down to South Africa for a very short trip, but in general, we try to do a lot of stuff remotely. That saves a bit on the Scope 1 and 2, but the real important part is how do we enable our systems to be lower emission. Medium term, 2030 is not far away. Essentially, the hardware for that is being designed now, and 2040 has a 90% versus baseline. And that's not greenwashing by buying certificates, it's really trying to influence your production. And the take-home message is net zero, sustainable development, all of that happens at design. It doesn't happen in operations. You can do a bit of tuning in operations, but you have to take it from the start. If a device is made to not be repurposable, it is not. Right? Except some smart engineer comes along and does something specific. If a design is not made to be recyclable, but just a lump of stuff you have to throw away, then it's not going to be recycled efficiently. And so the part that we can influence in current technology and in future technology is really energy, because our machines essentially convert energy to heat, waste, heat, and some compute. And you need to cool them, so you need more energy to operate a cooling system. Like this room is very comfortable, but it consumes a lot of energy for this morning. We could probably turn up the heat a bit. Some of you would be sleepy, but who cares, right? In the end, that's a question of where do you focus. Now, where do we focus? We focus on the data center. That's the room, right? In a room, it's reasonably easy to control energy consumption. Turn on the light, turn off the light, turn up the heating, the cooling. So that's what people have been trying to optimize when they looked at consumption of their data center. At the system level, we have a few knobs on our systems to change the heating, the cooling temperature in an air-cooled system by fan speed. So if you're not running high compute, maybe you don't run the fan at full speed. If you have a liquid-cooled system, what's your cooling temperature of the liquid? And so on. And I'm drawing a pyramid here because that's the amount of effort we've typically invested in the different levels for energy awareness, energy management, and energy consumption changes. And I argue, if you take one thing home on the sustainability topic, this pyramid should be a column. We should invest on all levels, and we need to boost our investments in the application, the middleware, and the system software influences we can take. If I can't tune how many GPU compute units are running for a given job, which I know is inefficient, it only uses half of the GPU, but I can't change my algorithm, I need to run it this year, not in 5 years when I've changed all my code, why can't I turn off half of them? Because they're not utilized. I can't. That's a design problem of that particular GPU. It's made to run at full speed, right? But if we have software to utilize it with 2 jobs at the same time, in a safe way, to not leak data and to not influence the performance of one job through the other, I can utilize the full thing. I need a middleware for that, or system software. And my applications need to be tuned to. Too loud? No. No, not loud enough. Okay, I'll speak up. And in the end, whenever you talk about saving energy, the interesting part is a scientist will tell you energy to solution is a great metric. I'm happy to work with that. If you explain that running faster, in the end, will also save energy. So we're not saying you shouldn't tune your application to run faster, right? Because if you're done in half the time and your system was not able to be influenced in how much energy it's consuming per time, is not job dependent, well then just make the job shorter, right? You're saving energy. If you have a lot of knobs, if you can really turn off the cylinders on your car to only be 2 instead of 12, well then you can also extend the runtime and save energy. But in many cases we can't. So the classic performance tuning, efficiency gains, also in general will help you be more energy efficient. So it's not either or, it's both hand in hand. If you can make your data center green, that's a great target, right? Grow plants with the waste heat. Utilize the waste heat to heat a community or put it in a heat exchanger to cool a community instead of just trying to evaporate it on a chiller. If you can be carbon neutral, we heard an example that even in this elephant conservation program, different pieces of the construction were considered regarding their carbon emissions in production, recycling, repurposing, right? It's in every piece. If you build a better building, that's going to be helpful for the overall balance. Now, green HPC is not just about the total cost of ownership, which is the bill that CHPC is running up every year on the energy, right? Refuse. That's not the corporate language, but if you don't buy a new system, you're saving carbon dioxide emissions from producing one, right? Reduce. Do you need all the gear, or do you use the gear properly? So buy the right amount, but then utilize it. Reuse it. Stick tomorrow will probably talk about that, or you can ask him in the break, how we can repurpose existing gear that's not made anymore technology-wise for the newest generation of HPC system, but it can still be used for smaller systems that don't need this super high performance, and they're still good. Maybe they break earlier, you need some replacement parts, but you can still build a system by reusing components, repurposing them for other purposes. Like you don't need all the cores, some cores are dead, some memory is dead, you use half the size, you can still make a viable system out of it, and you save on that production level. And recycling. So HPE has a recycling plant up in Scotland, so even the traffic from the European, African, Middle East sites doesn't go around the world to Southeast Asia for recycling. We actually do that up in Scotland. Design for sustainability, I mentioned that. Minimize transport, including for recycling. Grid interactivity, great topic for South Africa, because if your jobs are scheduled in such a way that they don't get interrupted or don't have an emergency backup, emergency checkpointing process, but an expected planned checkup of their status before your load shedding, before your generator kicks in and you have a power dampening. That's really efficiency in the end, because you don't rerun jobs that were killed. All right. On our side, we focus in the company on devices. Interesting topics are silicon photonics, analog accelerators, optical accelerators. They all promise to be better in energy efficiency because the conversion of data transfer through optics from the CMOS electrical devices that we typically use, that's a huge problem that you only realize once you build a data center and see that each transmitter on an optical cable is 15 watt, 20 watt, 30 watt. And you have one on each cable. And that's a constant power. It doesn't depend on how much data you put through. It's always on. Otherwise, your link is dead. That's a fixed cost. So networks can easily consume 20–25% of a supercomputing installation nowadays. And they're not modulated. They're always on. So silicon photonics would be an interesting aspect here. Then we have the energy and power management at the node level that we're doing research on because it's really difficult. People tune their applications to properly run across all the big system, nicely tuned to end computations of one step in an iterative procedure at the same time and not have strange behavior. But now if you slow one down and speed another one up, you get out of sync. And people hate you for that. So how can we make sure that we get in sync where people expect it at the MPI layer while still tuning performance of the individual components to the energy optimum and not the performance optimum? That carries down and up on the hardware and on the software layers above, my pyramid from 2 slides ago. And then there's the whole question of how we can design the data center, energy resources, energy networks across the whole ecosystem. One example I want to go in, because it both ties into our sustainability question that I described here, but also the second topic of my headline, federated workflows. That's Destination Earth. So who in the audience has not heard about Destination Earth? It's going to show more hands, I hope, than the other one. Yeah, so there's a few hands back there. Everybody else has, so I can just skip 20 slides. Destination Earth is an initiative of the European Commission to build twins of the Earth. Whatever topic is appropriate, but the first starting ones are extreme weather and climate change. There's a platform being built, there's services around that, and there's twins being systems that we used to call models in HPC, but with extra appendices. And the appendices are connected in a workflow. Traditionally, you would run your simulation. When the simulation is done, you save the data, maybe on your eternal archive, and someone comes back a few years later and says, could I get a climate forecast under these assumptions for 2030 to 2050? And then you would go through your archive, dig it out, write data, read data, a lot of time, a lot of energy, get it out, run your analysis, throw away your data because it's in the archive. Someone else comes, I need 35 to 50. Well, you pry it out of the archive again, you run your other analysis step, and then you realize, oh, I was missing 2051 in my simulation. So I rerun the simulation of 2020 to 2051, and that's inefficient. So this platform is supposed to give you access to different models, well curated, your choice of starting conditions, and you get the data if it's available, or you get the live production of data as a stream that you can attach your analysis steps to. It's a very federated, in terms of funding structure, project, namely ESA, the satellite operators, ECMWF, the Center for Medium Range Weather Forecast, and EUMETSAT, the satellite operators, each share responsibility, and we're in year 2 of the implementation now. It's a 10-year program, so you'll hear more about that later. The interesting part from the compute side is the computation will happen on the EuroHPC systems, on the 4 big ones and maybe some of the smaller ones. So you don't know where your job is running, potentially. Well, you may know because some models run better on this or on that system, but you have no choice. The platform is hiding that from you. So you have the core service platform, that's how users interact with it, a data lake, which is the large archive, and you have the twins. That's the part that I like to concentrate on because that's where we work in my team, on the climate twin. But the interesting part really is you have different systems that you need your software to be portable to, that you need to be able to interact with in a federated way. Namely, you run a climate simulation, let's say of ICON or IFS, famous weather codes. You run an analysis to find storms or to find temperature changes or wind changes globally. That's probably an AI job these days. But you also need to run quality assessments constantly that people typically have done by hand or by visual inspection to automatically have that system feedback, well, I'm getting out of sync, I'm getting out of the trajectory that you really expected me to do. Maybe something is wrong in my parameterization. And you have to deploy that on pre-exascale supercomputers. That's a take-home slide. I guess you'll get the slide after the presentation, so I'm not going to go into that. There's a categorization of twins, digital twins, that we like to point to, and this Destination Earth target is level 3 to 4 in there. So predictive models with analysis, but also being able to do future scenarios. Autonomous twin is a bit weird because we can't change the Earth system interactively, right? That's more for engineering systems where you can influence your system sufficiently. For climate, maybe we can, maybe we shouldn't, that's a different discussion, but at least we can track it and understand very well the trajectories and reduce the margin of error in the models. And that's the workflow I was pointing at before. We start with multiple models that all produce data in their format, put it into a common, comprehensible, metadata-enriched format called generic state vector, and then we stream the data to all the consumers, some of them feeding back to the models, some of them feeding out to consumers and the data lake. And that's a challenge. If you've ever run a simulation and tried to couple it to something else, unless you have a domain-specific coupler, you're probably lost. You can use Adios, which is in the audience, the developer of that, for some purposes, but again, this is ideally live streaming of components that you don't really know, and that's where the challenge is lying. The advantage is this GSV format maybe helps you along the way. We'll see. The first final checkup is in spring next year for a production system, and then hopefully we can go on for a few more years. AI is omnipresent, and so that's why I didn't make a separate section on AI in my talk, because we just have it everywhere. It's not a separate topic anymore. AI is HPC these days, and HPC often includes AI. I've used that famous quote that at least some in the audience will be bored by, but I still like it. HPC has been called, has been defined by Ken Betcher of some computer science fame. A supercomputer is a device for turning compute-bound problems into I/O problems, right? If you have done the compute right, all you're left with is feeding the machine and getting the data out. And that's what we suffer. And that's what we suffer in federation, even more than we used to on a single system. But we also suffer it from rank to rank in an MPI application, or from a producer to consumer in a classic piping system. We always face that. Unless we don't have the compute under control, then we're slowed by compute. Then we haven't done our initial homework. And AI is in that stage now. We can't feed our GPUs typically. The GPUs are too fast, so we don't utilize them unless we manage inference. We have systems where the inference cannot be sustained with a data inflow. So that's the critical part that we need to focus on. In this particular example, we have 3 types of AI present. It's the classic consumers. They look at data and say, oh great, I see an elephant, right? That's easy in some sense. It's reactive. You have a trained model, you look at the data, you identify your inference output, yes or no, elephant or mouse. But you can also constantly train on the model output. That's also easy. Well, not technically not that easy, because training on a stream, when you have to do data perturbation, mixing, and so on, there's technical challenges, but that's all in buffering in the end. But you also have AI in the loop, where your AI model feedback goes back to your system, goes back to your operator, to detect usage patterns, to maybe schedule jobs better. So that's where we see operational support, where we see quality of service being handled with AI tools. And remember, regression is also AI, right? It's not machine learning, but it's AI. So all the old techniques are still valid, right? You just have to be aware which type of algorithm is best for your problem. And then we have the full-blown thing, AI-enhanced models. That's the big topic of the week or the year. AIFS, if you've not heard about that, that's an IFS, the forecasting system of ECMWF, trained on 45 years of their ERA 5 data, and they can predict behavior of their local weather systems for a few hours greatly by a bit of generative AI. Because if you see a weather pattern, the movement of clouds, the movement of temperature fields is pretty predictable locally, except if you're in a chaotic situation. But you're not globally in a chaotic situation all the time. So for a limited time, you can evolve much faster than in a numerical fashion. And then you have to restart. So that saves a lot of compute. So that's AI-enhanced models. If you know what you're doing, if you have quality assurance for that part, do it. Wind is hard, temperature is easy. Simple statements like that. Don't do that for the wind model currently, but for the temperature model, it's quite fine. Just for those who care about data sizes, that's the size of the destination Earth climate twin. It's targeting roughly 300 terabyte per model per day, which makes a petabyte a day of inflow. That's a lot. You can't save that, right? So you have to read that live data, handle that live data, otherwise it has to be gone because you run the next day. For a climate simulation, 1.8 simulated years per day. If you want to simulate 1,000 years of climate, you need, well, 500 days of compute time. That's more than a year. You would have been at, whatever, 500 petabytes just for the outflow. So you need to do live analysis. And then with data reductions, you can save a few years on that data bridge. And we see a small version of that problem already in the performance of the numerical weather prediction in the time-critical window of ECMWF. Same problem, right? You produce a lot, you want to save most of it, but you can't, and you need to produce data for your customers, for your national weather centers, constantly. Data movement is the hard part. So I have, in the interest of time, I have to skip a few slides on this section, but really, this is how it looks today if you want to coordinate scheduling and data movement. That's the front end of a simulation device for a nuclear power plant. You have many, many knobs. If you know which one to press, all is fine, but you need a lot of training to do that, right? Sorry about that. Is that right? So that's the Harris plant, I think, in the US. It's one of the photos I could get for free. They build a complete replica just to train their people not to operate switches in the wrong way. And that's how we operate data movement, efficiency, and scheduling these days in HPC. That needs to change. We propose a tool called Maestro for that, which lets you couple applications. And that's not an HPE product. It's a research product of our lab, but it's open source. You can just have a look at it. We're going to use that in Destination Earth for coupling applications that didn't know about their existence when they were written, right? That have a consumer producer pattern, but it's not clear who's the producer, who's the consumer until the data event happens. You can observe that, monitor it, and steer. That has helped a lot for ECMWF already. 2 minutes? 1, 2? Right. So that's the take-home picture. Data is flowing from producers into a pool, but it's not moving. We just talk about the data. We don't move the data. And if you have someone who needs the data, they will get it out of band in a peer-to-peer fashion. If they don't, the data is gone, right? Maybe you have a logger that says, we've seen it, but we didn't save it, so that at least you have that event. And if you have a stager that saves everything because it has a fat pipe to get data out, fine. You can always bring it back from the archive. That's a simple, reusable component in such a design. It's not ad hoc. That concludes my technical part, and I'll just give you a view of the federation of my team. So we're focused on this research work in EMEA. So A in there is Africa. Happy to come to discussions with CHPC on what we could do together. We're based in Switzerland, France, Germany, and Britain at this point. And we do collaboration work. Anything goes if it's interesting for you and for our team. Anything that's a long-term scientific, and science being a science field, most of my team members are PhD in some discipline relevant for HPC, or for system architecture, which is the core of some of HPE Lab's work. And we do placements. If you want to visit, let's discuss how to do that. And that's it. There's your elephant.
Another round of applause, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our plenary session. Thank you so much for your patience and your attentiveness. And just to all our speakers, once more, can we just please give them a round of applause? It's time for a break, so refreshments will be served outside at the foyer. Please take note of what Nosipo said earlier, not to transfer food between this venue and the Safari Lodge when we go for lunch at a later time. Look through your program. Some sessions will be running concurrently. Please enjoy the rest of your conference and the rest of your day, and have a nice day. Thank you.
You have, now's the time to ask for any problems that we can try and resolve. Oh, I see there's others coming. So whether it's, so obviously CHPC related issues. So that's the main goal of this SIG is to, if you have problems, we try to resolve them. And seeing as I still do a lot of stuff with CHPC, at least have some inside knowledge on things that can be done on the machine. And if there's things you're having issues with running simulations or anything along those lines, then I can try and address them. So if there's anything, now's the time to speak up. And of course, we have Anton and Lechnololo here as well, who are your CHPC support staff. So again, there's other people that we can complain to and get something done about it if there's any issues. But yeah, this is like an open session, guys, so you're free to let me know, whatever. Anything. And for those of you that just walked in, so I'm the new chemistry SIG chair since Prof. Francisco has stepped down. So I am going to be the one dealing with all the chemistry material science issues at CHPC from now onwards.
Yeah, any update with regards to the generators for load shedding?
Are you not on the mailing list?
I am on the mailing list.
Then
but
you missed the most important email of all.
Which one?
Which is the one that says that the CHPC is no longer going to be down because the generator is up and running. So the second generator is now up and running.
All right, since it's all up and running now, with regards to running our jobs, are there any, because it takes longer time these days to get on the queue.
Yes.
And is there a change in the setting for running jobs or something? So we need an update to know, or if it's still the same way, because you can check and see the amount of jobs, especially in the other part of the cluster, but we can't tell on the material studio side.
Yes, so I can tell you from prior knowledge of Material Studio, there is a limited number of cores that you get access to run those jobs, right? So in total for all Material Studios, I think there's something like 2,400 cores that you'll have access to. And it's mainly due to the fact that they want the cluster to be fairly used. So yeah, if you're submitting a job, the one big problem they have with Material Studio at the moment is a 96-hour wall time. You cannot cut that down, because if you do so, you cut it down for everybody. And sometimes it's not enough for some people's simulations to complete. So there's a toss-up here. Unless Accelerus does something, I don't think there's anything CHPC can do. And maybe Anton can also elaborate.
Yes, the only once-off ad hoc thing we could maybe do for particular jobs, if users are aware of how long their wall time should be, they can send in a help desk ticket and we can adjust that particular job. But it's going to be quite a lot of effort to keep on changing lots of various jobs. But if on an ad hoc basis we can adjust, a job is submitted to the queue, then it's got a job number on the queue, and then we can reset that one, and then it would get to start as it would if it was 12 hours if you asked for that.
Okay, so Kingsley, there's an option. If you know your jobs are going to run shorter periods, and you don't want to queue, right? Because remember, the queuing is a problem when you specify too long a wall time. So if you know your jobs are going to be done within 12, you can just ask for the wall time to be reduced. Then your job will probably get in faster.
Just two questions. One, when can we expect Material Studio 20, well, maybe next year it will be 2024, 2023 available for use on the cluster? That's the first question. And then the second one is regarding the data. I know that there's a patch policy. Is there any transition to automating that data to just go and perhaps be moved to some medium-term storage instead of a short time?
We can look into trying to make it into like a medium-term storage, because I mean now Darisa's got their thing up and running, right? So that is a possibility now, that we can send the data to a medium storage or a long-term storage sort of facility. So I think we'll have to just chat with Werner about that and check if it's a possibility for them to do. With Material Studio, we must speak to Nkwe. So I will chat with him. I think, or even Anton. When is the new one coming out? When is the new Material Studio available?
Yeah, I'm not sure. We renewed our license but yeah, I'm not absolutely sure on that.
So the download is available. It's on their site. It just needs to be installed on the cluster side.
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
But well, maybe Inquire can help with that. But yes, the Genola and I are now looking more after Schrodinger and Material Studio.
Okay, cool. So if you guys can maybe early next year then, Katleho, I think that would be, that's reasonable. So Anton, just you can make note of it, early next year.
Hope so.
Anyone else, guys?
I'm still talking about Material Studio. What are the new features in the Material Studio, if you have an idea or something like that?
Hey, there's not much from the development side of things that I know of. That's different. So I don't know. We'll have to play around and see once we actually get it. Because I haven't had a chance to actually now go through it either because I'm not installing the software on the machine anymore. But I will have a look and I'll check. Then I'll let you know.
Now, I've got a question on Medea. There are some groups who have got Medea licenses, but with the scheduling of the jobs, I think it's quite often that there's a particular wall time set as 96 hours and the admin at that other institution can adjust it, but individual users can't. I don't know if we know more about that or how we could, like you could obviously change jobs on an ad hoc basis, but that's, or the admin at UL in POCH could do it, but Northwest. But yeah.
I don't know, Katleho, do you maybe know? You do the Medea stuff on your end. Do you all control the wall time yourselves?
I think for Medea it might be determined by the system configuration. Yeah, but we can play a bit on the priority, but yeah.
Yeah, because I know of the priority thing. I don't know about the wall time.
Okay, so I'm not 100% sure, but I know whoever's in charge of the administration for Medea at NWU, we can set the wall time. I think at the current state it's only 48, but we did change it at some point to 96 because some of our VASP users were having programs that were running longer. So we did update that. But it's all on that 34,000 administration site. I don't know if anyone knows what I'm talking about, but yes, it's there.
Okay, so fine. Then inevitably, if it's done on the admin side, then yeah, they'll have to control that then. But then on the CHPC end, how does it work? Is it admin as well?
It comes in sets, whatever was that wall time. We could ad hoc adjust jobs, as I mentioned, but it's not under our control really.
Okay, no, but that's fine.
Yes.
These things are handled by the administrators at the different institutes, so that's okay. At least that's not an issue. It's only Material Studio that's the bigger problem right now.
Yes, it has. Unfortunately, can you only have one wall time, and yes.
Okay, but if there's anything else, guys, I told you it won't be long. And then the plan is obviously now that we've started this SIG thing, we want to, maybe the next CHPC conference, I will have a chat with Ben and them, that we can have a separate session that's dedicated to the chemistry materials guys so that the students can actually present and then we'll get the professors and everybody else to sit and judge them and do whatever. So we can have like separate prize giving for them and stuff.
Is there a way to create this more formalized in the sense that we have like our own mailing group so that now and then you kind of have an idea of who is within this domain and then that can help as well in the aspect of collaboration or maybe sharing codes that would work or sharing ideas for problems that one has or one could solve. So is there a way of doing that rather than just having one meeting once a year?
Yes, no, so that's the plan. I don't want to do this once a year thing because it's not enough, clearly. So I will get the list from Anton. I think I already do have a list, but I'll get an updated list early next year and then I'll email everybody so that we all know that, look, I'm the new person, and then if there's anybody you want to get in touch with for certain things, you'll reach out to me and then we'll obviously now, because of POP, we now can't just, We can't just give away emails. But yes, I'll be the center of communication if that's the case then.
Sorry, Krishna, I'm wondering, we don't have enough users here to know, but we'd maybe like to get a feel for a general idea of how many people are still happy using Material Studio and actually need to use Material Studio, or how many would be interested in some other software, Schrödinger or Medea or something instead. We obviously normally have to have enough user support to decide on anything. But you know, we would like to kind of know what people are on this. Material Studio is pretty stagnant. They're not improving anything, but it might be working for people. So,
look, I think, yeah, because of the numbers we have here, it's obviously not going to be a true reflection. So maybe, again, early next year, what we can do is have some sort of survey for our users, specifically the material science people, but then the computational chemistry as well. And then we see, what do they say, if they still, because I know there's quite a few, right? If you look at the jobs that are on the cluster right now, there's a large amount of accelerators. So there are clearly a lot of people still using the software. We just have to see whether there's a way to, if we can deviate from it.
Just adding to this, I remember the last time you sent out a survey when you were still there. And we all said we don't want Schrödinger. From
not true.
an auto side.
That's from, so let's see if it changes. We don't know. No, but look, the thing is, the Material Studio is getting more and more expensive. So this is one of the things that they keep sitting on my head for, especially from CHPC side, is the cost that's involved for the package. So, but there's no alternative right now. Schrödinger, we don't know how it works and how well it performs compared to materials. So this is a problem. That unless they're willing to give us enough of an evaluation period for you guys to test and be happy with it, then that might be an option. Maybe you can speak to Craig there, Anton, and then we'll see what he says.
Wondering whether we want, Adeo had been wondering, as they always do, whether we want a national license, but that's, yeah.
That's going to be even worse than Material Studio, yes.
Yeah, he couldn't tell me what, it's not his field. He was just presenting yesterday, so he's not in the sales. Yeah, his name just vanished from my head.
David,
yes.
Yeah, okay, no, so it's fine. We'll have to see what options we have. And hopefully, if CHPC is willing to fork the costs, then we can make a plan.
It also depends on when our license we've paid for ends as well, obviously, so yeah.
Yeah, so remember the Material Studio is a yearly one that usually, I can't remember when the expiry date is.
Yeah, I think we renewed it, so, but yeah, it's still worth, knowing.
Okay, but yeah, other than Material Studio, it seems like there's a very Material Studio dominated session. Any other issues? Nothing else? Everybody's happy? Where? Oh, there. Okay, somebody's coming with the mic. Dude, they gave us a very big hall for so little people.
Okay, thank you. Just want to know, why was Discovery Studio removed from the CHPC, and is there any chance to bring it back?
Not a chance to bring it back, unfortunately, no. Reason why it was removed was, again, they were not doing development in terms of advancing stuff for the biomodeling. Whereas Schrödinger was keeping up to date with things, and Schrödinger is now being applied more in the pharmaceuticals, so that's why we opted for Maestro as opposed to Discovery. Remember, the interface for Discovery is still open source. That's free. It's just the modules in there you can't use. Yeah.
Yeah, because my issue with Schrödinger is that sometimes there's some simulations that you can't run, especially if you're working with rare earth metals, especially pharmaceutics. Because I was working in an organic lab, so when they're doing complexes with osmium and stuff, it just wasn't working.
That's because you're going to need to parameterize the stuff, right? So some of them don't have parameters in Schrödinger, so that's the problem. I think there is a way for you to read in parameter files, like custom ones, to make it work. I will have to just look into that. But I think it's possible. Otherwise, you should just try other software, like your Autodocs or something.
Yeah, I did try Autodoc before, but sometimes when you run Autodoc, it does break some of the ligands bonds. So you
Yes,
just have to.
yes, yeah. Because obviously not everything works great.
Yeah, yeah.
But yes, I believe there's ways to actually take files that you read into Autodoc and read it into Maestro.
Ah, okay.
And then do the docking that way. So
Okay.
there should be a way to do that, like
Okay.
custom force fields.
Okay, awesome.
Anybody else? No, are we all good? So we can actually break early, with like literally 10 minutes. Okay, guys, but then thanks for coming. And then, as I say, I will be in communication with you all early in the year. And then we will see how things go. Oh, because also I am the chair of the South African Chemical Institute Molecular Modeling Division as well. So, yes, I'm now doing lots and lots of admin stuff these days. So y'all will see things coming from me from that side as well, where we do sessions once a month with different computational chemists and material scientists, so that you can get an idea of what people are doing at the different universities especially. And if you want to establish collaboration, then again, we just get you all in contact with the guys. Right. If we're all good, then enjoy your break.